YouTube says it has had enough of vaccine misinformation on its site.
And false stories from phony sites to run circles around major news outlets.
Many people don't know the difference between something real and something created to deceive them.
Open your eyes.
If you've ever had this feeling that something was terribly wrong with the world that we live in, but you couldn't figure out just what it was, then you've come to the right place. Secret societies, mystery religions, and the Illuminati have been controlling our reality since the beginning of time. But not anymore, because there is an awakening happening, and you are about to become a part of it. Wake up, because this is a call for an uprising.
If you ever forget your passport or driver's license at the airport, Apple has you covered. The tech giant is rolling out a new digital ID feature that lets iPhone users carry their passport details in their back pocket just in time for busy holiday travel. Now, so far, it's not available for international trips. And so for more on this, I want to bring in our tech reporter, Mike Dobuski, who has all the details. And Mike, it is important to note that this is specifically for domestic flights, but it's sort of like a digital passport, right?
In some ways, yeah. So the way this works, Alex, is that you get your actual physical passport, you get out your phone, you take a picture of the front little photo page, and then you also scan the chip that's in the back of the passport. And then you also have to take a selfie, so Apple can actually make sure that you're the one trying to upload this digital ID, as it's known, to the Apple Wallet app. But after that, you can basically use this as what it sounds like, a digital ID. You can check in with TSA, again, only for domestic flights, and potentially down the line, you could use this for other purposes. Things like, getting into bars or ordering, things off websites that are over 21, things like alcohol from Uber Eats, for example. So in some ways, it's like a passport. In some ways, it's like a real ID or a driver's license.
Well, and so Mike, which airports are accepting this?
About 250 of them across the United States at this point, across 12 states and Puerto Rico. So it is pretty widespread, and you can expect those numbers to go up as Apple rolls this out more broadly. This is still in beta testing, so the idea is you walk through a TSA line and then you go up to the little ID scanner. Instead of taking out your passport, you simply hold the power button down on your phone to open the Apple Wallet app, and it will scan your digital ID. In addition to that, you can, as the individual, also choose what information you're sharing. And it is still password protected in the same way that Apple Pay is. So if you hand your phone over to a TSA agent, they can see your ID, but they can't see anything else on your phone.
Well, and Mike, look, my wallet, many of my credit cards are already stored on my phone. I've got facial recognition for security here. But are there security concerns about putting government ID info into a smartphone?
I think there are just inherently every time that we upload any form of identification or any sort of financial information to our tech devices. Now, Apple, for their part, say they don't have any insight into when you're using this digital ID, what information that you're sharing. But of course, there's the security concerns, Alex. There's also the sort of just practical concerns. What if you go to the airport, you're waiting in line for too long, and your phone battery runs out, or your phone just dies, or it breaks? There's some logistical concerns here that could pose a pretty big problem if people start leaving their actual identification at home. And that's why many officials are saying in these sort of early stages of this rollout, it's best to bring your passport with you just in case.
Just in case. All right, Mike, thanks for that.
This is a call for an uprising. Welcome to today's show. As you heard, Apple has announced that they are introducing their own version of a digital ID. It is very important to pay attention to how countries roll out the digital ID because it's going to be different in every single country based on the behavior of the citizens. For example, a country like America, they're not going to be able to get everybody's guns. Other countries were willing to give up their guns. They call America the Great American Experiment because everything that occurs in this country is willed through mind control, and people willingly partake in the things the government wants to push on them and mandate on them. They sign up for things like Facebook. They sign up for things like digital IDs and real IDs. Whereas other countries like the UK, which we just heard, are forcing these things on their civilians, giving their civilians no option. Here in America, they're using the option of the illusion of choice. Companies, corporations, which are really shell companies of DARPA, are going to be offering the digital ID in the name of convenience. And I will go into that in detail. But in the UK, they announced that the digital ID will be mandatory via the government, forcing this on you, saying that you won't be able to have a job unless you have a digital ID. And they know that that's not going to fly in America. And I expect them to deceive Americans by having these shell corporations release digital IDs as opposed to what we're seeing in the UK, where the government is doing it. That way you willingly use your free will to sign up for these things because you trust in these corporations like Apple and Amazon and Samsung. But the reality of the matter is that these companies are all creations of the government. They are shell companies. You trust in these companies. You like these brands. You see the people who pretend to be the creators of these companies. You get their fake backstories from Steve Jobs to Mark Zuckerberg, and you think that all this technology is for your benefit. But it's not. It's government surveillance enslavement technology that they know if they brought it to your front door, you would never have brought this tech into your home. So Apple is introducing their digital ID. And you saw the clip there, how they're going to use biometrics, how this is convenient in case you lose your passport or your license. You'll have it stored in your digital wallet. This isn't the first time we've heard about this. We've heard it multiple times. We've heard about things like the Real ID. We heard about digital licenses in specific states. We have to pay attention to how they start marketing and manipulating people into a digital ID. And of course, convenience is going to be at the top of that list. But let's quickly take a look at Apple, who is announcing this, because keep in mind, when Apple is telling you that all of this stuff is going to be on your phone, your wallet's going to be in your phone, your passport, your license, your medical data, all this stuff in a digital wallet. Remember, Apple is also getting ready to eliminate the cell phone. The smartphone is going away. Apple's already supporting brain implant control of its devices, where you can control technology through brain-computer interface. People like Elon Musk have already announced it. Mark Zuckerberg announced it. Bill Gates, all of these guys have said that the smartphone is going to be obsolete. So if this technology is coming forward, where all of your stuff is going to be stored in technology, and then they say, well, we're also going to get rid of that smartphone you're going to use for your passport and for your license, you have to start paying attention to what is coming, which is this technology being embedded inside of your genetic code via blockchain. I've talked about Revelation chapter 13, verse 17. No man might buy or sell save he that had the mark or the name of the beast or the number of his name. Now, keep in mind, all these companies have a direct connection, whether it's their logos, the history of the company, the numerologies with these companies. They have direct connections to the mark of the beast, whether it's 666 like we see with Apple, or in fact, Apple's logo in general, right? The bite of the apple. Do you think Steve Jobs saw an apple, took a bite and said that would be a great logo? It represents the forbidden fruit, the forbidden knowledge, the snake biting the fruit in the garden. In Adam and Eve, the temptation, right? That's what the logo comes from. That's why the bite mark is even in it. Don't forget, the first Apple computer sold for $666.66. Here, again, I've showed this clip many times. It's important to see it. Here is Steve Wozniak, the counterpart to Steve Jobs, the co-creator of Apple, who even has a crap-eating grin on his face while he lets you know why they picked the number 666 and can't even help but smirk at the notion of, as if they were so clueless of why they picked that number.
Over here, we've got the very first computer we ever built. I hand-wired the entire bottom, soldered it all together. That was an Apple I, the first Apple I computer ever.
Those were the most incredible times. The summer that I built the Apple I computer, I was totally aware that a revolution was close to starting. Steve Jobs came into town. He'd pop into town, see what I was up to, the latest thing I designed for fun, and then he'd somehow turn them into some money for both of us. So Steve Jobs went in to sell him some of our little boards that we built for $20. He said no. They want to buy the thing ready to go. It cost us $250 to build maybe. We'd sell it for $500. And then the retail price was $666.66 because I, as a mathematician, like repeating digits. And that was what it should be.
And again, Apple, the one releasing the digital ID, also has Apple Intelligence, which I've covered in the past. It's that logo, look, familiar. If you look at the two logos next to one another, you count the number of corners in it. That's a heptagram. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Right. The heptagram uses the symbol for Babylon and Aleister Crowley's occult Thelema religion. It's a heptagram. Okay, the heptagram is known as the mother of abominations in Aleister Crowley's teachings. That specific symbol. So what we know is that if they start marketing this digital ID through corporations versus Donald Trump coming out and telling you, versus Joe Biden or whoever the next clown is, Gavin Newsom, you know that people are going to be opposed to it if they're on the opposite side of the political aisle, because that's what we've gotten to with the psychosis. If Trump supports a digital ID, somehow conservatives will probably be on board. But Democrats, who normally would support anything that they're told to put in their bodies or anything that they're told to do, like what we saw with the vaccines, they'd always be on board. But now if Donald Trump is the one implementing it, right? So we're likely going to see these corporations doing this. And the iPhone is the most popular phone in the United States and the world, okay? It is the #1 phone used worldwide. And they're not the only ones who are doing this. That's how we can tell by looking at these stories that, oh, Apple's got a digital ID. Well, guess what? So does Samsung in their digital wallet. They have their own version of a digital ID. And I expect other companies to start doing the same exact thing. And they're going to see how many people willingly, without being forced or told by the government, will sign up for a digital ID. They saw the pushback with the Real ID, and they realized, wow, a lot of people didn't show up for this. I mean, I covered it at the time. Some of you may not have seen the videos because I've been all over the place. But they pretended like there were long lines to get the Real ID. Nobody was showing up for the Real ID. Nobody cared about the Real ID. Then they tried to make it mandatory in regards to needing a Real ID and able to fly domestically. Otherwise, you can have your passport. And a lot of people said, fine, I'll just bring my passport every time I fly. I don't care. I'd rather get my passport renewed. I don't feel like getting a Real ID. Why do you want my Real ID? And they see the pushback. They look at the data, and if they don't like the data, they just pivot. They did it with COVID. They wanted to bring in the digital ID and the digital passport with COVID. They saw your response to COVID. They saw how many people really got vaccinated. They saw how many people were screaming about a digital passport. They saw how many people were screaming about contact tracing, how many people were pissed off about social distancing and standing 6 feet apart. So instead of all the variants they promise us we get every single month, they pivoted to the immigration crisis as the new way to convince you that we need a digital ID. COVID didn't work. Let's create a new problem. There's immigrants coming in. We'll pretend we can't stop them. We'll tell voters that their votes are getting thrown out, but these people from other countries are voting in their elections. Thus, the elections are rigged. These are psychological things that they're doing all to bring in a digital ID. And what you need to understand most is that everything you're seeing is a government operation, including Apple releasing a digital ID. All of these companies, again, are shell companies of DARPA. Let me simplify. Let me do it as quickly as I can. Let me educate you so you don't get bored of what DARPA is, because people hear DARPA and they don't understand. DARPA, simplified, okay, is a U.S. government agency under the Department of Defense. Its job is to invent and develop crazy high-risk, high-reward technologies that are way ahead of their time, mostly to keep U.S. military far ahead from everyone else into technology, right? Think of it as the Pentagon's mad scientists. Small teams of brilliant people get a ton of money and freedom to work on things that sound like science fiction. And this is according to their AI, which they're using to tell you that all correct information is coming from AI now and everything else is misinformation. So this is coming from their own mouths. That's why I'm using it. Okay, they say with the rule that if it's not at least a little bit insane and potentially game-changing, they're probably not interested. So here are things that DARPA has created. The internet, GPS, stealth aircraft technology, voice recognition, computers, mouse, graphical user interfaces, self-driving cars, mRNA vaccine technology. See how this ties together? Hypersonic weapons. And that's not to mention just some other things. Brain-computer interfaces, which it does mention, drones, swarms. How about directed energy weapons? All creations of DARPA, all things we're seeing on a day-in, day-out basis. And again, who funds DARPA? DARPA is fully funded by you and me. If you pay your taxes, taxpayers fund DARPA. And what DARPA does with their money is they create this technology and then they have shell companies sell you this technology because they know you would never bring it in your home. You would never want Big Brother to track you with GPS, right? For example, the internet, right? The internet, when the internet came out, well, it was slowly marketed to you. And by the way, the birth of the web, which was started at DARPA, the World Wide Web, working with DARPA, was created at CERN, right? And of course, World Wide Web, which nobody ever thinks about anymore, WWW, is 666 in Hebrew. And of course, CERN's logo is littered with that number 666, as I mentioned earlier, about being able to buy or sell in terms of thinking about the internet and thinking about if a digital ID is something that's embedded in your genetics via an mRNA vaccine, well, you'll only be doing purchasing via a digital wallet, which they've conditioned you into with things like PayPal and Venmo over the last decade or so. So we go back to DARPA and we look at all the insane technology, right? And then you say to yourself, wow, GPS, these are all things that, oh, I have a GPS in my car. Oh, I have this. That's sold to you. It's marketed to you. And then you willingly use your free will and buy these things, thinking that Jeff Bezos isn't spying on me. Mark Zuckerberg, what does he care what I'm talking about on Facebook, right? So they give you a nice little cute story about who these people are, right? These are shell companies. It's really your government, whether it's Meta, Amazon, Apple, Google, NVIDIA, Tesla, Microsoft. They're all directly connected. Intel, HP, IBM, all connected to the government. So you get your characters like Bezos, Zuckerberg, Jobs, and in your mind, you get these stories. This is why they throw these biopics out at you every couple of months, right? How many Steve Jobs biopics do people need to see? None. Nobody wants to really see it. They give it to, oh, he's such a smart guy. He came up with this idea. Oh, did Mark Zuckerberg steal this idea from these guys? No. DARPA created this technology with taxpayers' money. This technology was created to spy and bring in a surveillance state on their own civilians. The civilians would have uprised against this if they realized it. So what they did was they started marketing it to you in cool brand names like Apple, by showing you video games and cool little things you could do on your phone, like take a picture of yourself and turn it into a black and white photo, or put little flowers or kiss emojis or heart emojis by your face. And the next thing you know, this technology is accepted. That's exactly what they're doing right now with AI. They're giving you AI and they're saying you could make a thumbnail for a video. You could do this with AI. You could take a picture of, you could take Keanu Reeves and put him in Top Gun and have a 15-second clip. And all these people love it. They love to be entertained. And then we allow this technology in our society, not realizing, wait a minute, the government has the advanced technology, so far advanced. Somebody just commented on one of my videos and they said, look at AI, it's crap. Those videos don't work. You can see the guy's hand. That's the AI they released to you to get you accustomed to it. You have zero idea how advanced their AI is and what it's planning on doing to the rest of us, especially through AI governance, right? So Apple, direct connection. Let's look at these connections before, this is what's really important for you to know, okay? Apple, directly connection to DARPA. DARPA's investments in foundational technologies indirectly shaped Apple's hardware and software. Not through direct adoption beyond Siri, GPS location services, internet and networking, AI and machine learning, all created by DARPA, then funneled through companies like Apple. Okay, that Siri technology, which is extremely dangerous technology. It's military technology that's being marketed to you now as a personal assistant through Apple. In the early 2000s, DARPA launched the personalized assistant that learns. It's called the PAL program, a multi-million-dollar initiative to build AI systems capable of reasoning, learning from experience, and assisting military planners with data synthesis and decision-making, right? Now, all of a sudden, it's in your home, right? By 2007, as military adoption lagged due to security and integration challenges, Siri spun off and became an app for the iPhone. Apple acquired Siri, they tell you, in a $200 million deal. Right? So your government is creating this type of technology for the military, and then they're selling it to Apple? Is any of this stuff making sense to you? Is this for your benefit that the government's creating this technology and then giving it to big tech companies so that you go and buy it and bring it into your home? Okay, that's what people need to realize. They want this tech in your home. You never would have brought it in the first place. So Apple, again, direct connection. I talked about Amazon, right? Amazon was not born in a garage. It was born at the Pentagon. Okay, Jeff Bezos' grandfather, co-founder of DARPA. Take a look at Jeff Bezos. Do you think that guy came up with any of this stuff? Look at all these clowns. Elon Musk, guy that can't even make a sentence. They all sound like complete lunatics. They're like, oh, they're just crazy tech guys. They're smarter than us. That's why they sound like that. They're actors, right? Elon Musk, Tesla, SpaceX, creation of what? Creation of DARPA. Deep, enduring partnership with DARPA since its earliest days. Okay? DARPA, the U.S. Department of Defense, high risk, high reward R&D arm, provided critical early validation and funding that helped SpaceX survive nearly bankruptcy in 2008. It's involved in other ways with Tesla. They'll try to pretend like it's not. We all know how the government came in. Donald Trump's uncle actually took the innovations from Nikola Tesla and then, of course, put it under the character of Elon Musk as the Tesla creator and founder. This is government tech that you're seeing. NVIDIA, another one. We hear about NVIDIA almost every day, right? NVIDIA, the big stock. Everyone's talking, NVIDIA, the stock. NVIDIA, the chips that they're making, they're going to be crazy. NVIDIA is going to power the AI infrastructure, right? Well, NVIDIA, funded by DARPA. Right? So it's not DARPA going out and saying, hey, this company, NVIDIA, has a cool idea. We'd like to help them out. It's DARPA saying, here, you're going to take this technology and you're going to push it out. We're going to let people invest in these stocks. If you like they're part of these corporations, we'll make the stocks go up. We'll make them go down. We'll make people go crazy while they watch their stocks. Meanwhile, we're bringing out this technology that should be illegal, that no normal human being should ever want in their world, but they're wanting and willing to allow it in their world because they're making money via stocks. They're seeing companies sell it to them and not Big Brother do it, right? I talked about Facebook and the LifeLog program, DARPA's LifeLog program, okay? It was created by DARPA, the U.S. Department of Defense research arm, initiated the LifeLog program in 2003 under its Information Processing Techniques Office, okay? I talked about this recently. LifeLog shut down the same day that Facebook launched. It was the same thing. Would people have willingly gone to LifeLog if they came out and said, hey, the Pentagon is releasing an internet website where you go there and you put in your information and you put in what you're thinking, you put in what you're eating, you take pictures of yourself, you tag locations when you go places, right? Would you willingly do that if it had a government.gov, URL? No, you wouldn't. So they built out LifeLog, they shut it down, they launched Facebook. They gave you the character of Mark Zuckerberg. Ooh, Zuckerberg stole the idea from the dorky twins at Harvard University, right? And everybody goes down a fake government-created rabbit hole because they don't want you to realize what DARPA's really doing. Who else is DARPA involved with? Well, how about AT&T? Because if we look at everything and we look at the connection of the internet, we look at the connection of Wi-Fi, we look at the 5G towers, well, AT&T and DARPA have a direct connection, right? DARPA's funding and technical guidance helped shape AT&T, Bell Labs. They've been working together since AT&T became a company. ARPANET development, DARPA's flagship networking project, relied on AT&T and Bell Labs for key infrastructure as they partnered with one another. And then from there, what happened with AT&T? Well, AT&T became a lot of different companies, right? Companies that you know of today as Verizon, spinoffs from AT&T. Companies like T-Mobile, spinoffs, right? So DARPA puts this tech out and then they give you you could buy a T-Mobile phone, you could buy a Verizon phone, right? You could buy the AT&T phone. You could buy some of these other phones that we roll, these burner phones, right? As if it's some independent thing, a company coming up with an idea that there's no connection to the government, that you're free will, you're picking what you want, you're making this choice. It's the illusion of freedom. And you're buying, and we're all buying into our own enslavement system. All of these phone companies are all connected to DARPA, right? Just like all the big tech companies are. And this is all about surveillance, full-on government surveillance. The digital ID is the key. It's the coup de grace of the entire thing. It is what is needed to move forward with a new world order. The entire purpose of September 11th, yes, sacrificing humans is always a part of it. Rituals are always a part of it. But the purpose of it, of course, was the Patriot Act. We would not be allowed to be under this type of surveillance without it. The Patriot Act, which was passed in 2001, October 26th, not even 2 months after 9/11, right? Because they needed people to be fully believing in their bullcrap narrative of Osama bin Laden and these hijackers coming after America and all the imagery that they show you, just like the stuff with Trump and fight with George Bush standing on top of the rubble. And when George Bush threw out the first pitch at the Yankee game, everybody distracted, wanting blood, wanting vengeance, everybody hearing one another's sob stories. And the government comes out and they go, hey, we're going to release the Patriot Act, right? And what does the Patriot Act do? Well, the Patriot Act legally gives the government the legal authority to conduct surveillance on people inside of the United States, including U.S. citizens and permanent residents, right? If you go through the bill in each section, you could read some of the unbelievable things the government could do, allowing the FBI to obtain any tangible things, phone records, bank records, internet, metadata. I mean, now it's like, oh yeah, people are just used to it. They see these crime shows, right, which is also normalized it, where the government is getting people's, whereabouts with 5G, pinging off of phones, going through people's email records, using it in cases, even though it's, would be looked at as insufficient evidence, where they say, well, the government's going through an email. The guy was looking at this in a Google search. All that stuff, the president was set with the Patriot Act. And that's where we are now, because the final straw, the final nail in the coffin is this digital ID being passed. And they are trying to figure out how in America they can convince the civilians to sign up for this. And you're going to see so many different ways, and they're going to continue with the immigration stuff. Don't be surprised, another huge psyop around the next election with voting or this or that or false flag events with people crossing the border. That's what they're trying to use in the UK to justify this, and people aren't buying it. They're saying, oh, people are coming off of ships illegally. Huh? And people there are going, no way. You tell us we can't have a job? They're getting threatened heavily. Well, they're pretty much unarmed over there. Here in America, they're not going to get away with that. Trump's playing the character of the big NRA gunman. He just supports us, supports patriots. So he's not going to come out and enforce a digital ID, but they flipped to Newsom in 2028. You can bet your bottom dollar that they could easily do that. Then what? I mean, you have a civil war in your hands. They tell you can't work without a digital ID. They're going to try to pull something big to do it. But right now, when you hear Apple releasing a digital ID, this is their way of data mining and seeing how many people are actually going to sign up for this through the name Apple, through the name Samsung, because they're companies. They're not thinking about the government. They're thinking of this illusion of what they believe Apple and Amazon and all these companies are. So they're saying, maybe it'll be convenient. I'll do it through Apple. I have an Apple phone. I have an Apple computer. I love Apple. I love the Apple logo. I love the slickness of the Apple iPad. Oh, the other person, I don't like Apple products. I like Microsoft products, or I like Samsung products. Okay. So they come out with their digital, then they see how many people are going to sign up. How much chaos can we cause at the airports to annoy people to make them sign up? What other chaos can we cause people to make them sign up? Now, of course, they got a tippy toe around all these other psyops they put out there about how your data is getting stolen, hackers are hacking, websites getting shut down, because they do that at the same time. Because they want to create this illusion of a boogeyman when they do a grid shutdown or anything along those lines. They have to be careful not to make people scared to go online with a digital ID. They have to make sure you feel secure and protected, which is why they're using these company names. So Apple's doing this. Samsung's doing it. I expect more corporations do it, but this will not be the thing that I expect that will get people to sign up unless they're really, really dumb. But again, we live in a really, really dumb time period where convenience is really all people care about. They're in a rush to get nowhere. Convenience. Oh, who cares? What am I hiding? What am I doing? Right. Until you're the one who the government's starting to target because you're not listening to the government when they tell you to eat bugs instead of steak. Or you're not listening to the government when they tell you can only shower once a week. Or you're not listening to the government where they tell you can't buy X amount of clothes even though you love to go shopping. Or you can't say this word. Or you can't spend X amount of hours outdoors and you love to be outdoors because of your carbon footprint. That's when everything changes. But the digital ID has to be in place first. So keep an eye on how these rollouts go in every country. I personally believe in America that this right here is just another experiment to see how many sheeple will actually sign up via the trusted corporation name, but I doubt that it'll actually work. They're going to need to pivot to something else, and they'll probably have to do some type of huge false flag around an election where there's just some type of major conspiracy, the votes don't count, the votes are rigged, we need something in place, this and that. And the next thing you know, people will willingly sign up because they'll be so deep in the psychosis that they'll forget about their privacy and forget about their own rights. And that's how they continually do this and get us to this point. Just like the fact that we even put up with COVID for as long as we did. There's no pushback. Complaining, wow, what did that do? Right? Threatened your job. A lot of people lost their jobs. A lot of people lost their freedom to speak online, right? And nothing happened. None of these people were arrested. The citizens didn't rise, right? So they know that they got the people in the palm of their hands. It's a matter of how can they deceive them? How can they trick them to get them to willingly participate? And will they eventually just say, hey, you know what? Like the UK, you can't have a job without it. We'll see. We'll see what happens. Because even in an armed country, I mean, are people really going to do anything? Probably not. I mean, would I recommend people do anything? No. What I recommend is that people get offline and people realize that their whole control, everything that they need for total control is all through the internet. All of it. Everything is running online. Without it, they have no control. They have none whatsoever. But I get it. Call me a hypocrite. I'm online right now. I get it. Okay? People get defensive, like, well, you're online, so what the heck? You're talking about a hypocrite. Why? Because you're defensive because you're online? I'm not online that much, but yeah, I get it. I'm trying to help people wake up. I'm using their tools to my advantage, but I'm not going to be doing this for much longer. And I tell you right now, when the digital ID comes, I'm gone. I'm not getting paid to do this. I'm doing this to try to wake people up. So pay attention to these stories. I thank everybody for being here. I hope you're all doing well. God bless you and your families as always.